Let's go! TJ Finley, QB1 versus Auburn. Today we break down the game from all different angles. And really, the title should be The Battle of the Bad Coordinator Hires. Yes, what was LSU thinking, Bo Pelini? But even worse, Auburn says, hey, to run our offense, let's hire the worst SEC coach of all time. Yes, have you seen what Arkansas has done without Chad Morris? Anyway, that's all coming up today. Once again, it's a road to 2K at 1.5K. We're giving out that Patrick Queen card. And of course, when we hit 2K, an autograph of an LSU legend. First thing, 2:30 kickoff on CBS. So many of you send me messages. What time's the game? Like, what channel? Tell me. So, you get the Gary Danielson treatment. Not all of you are fans of Gary. Take a look at what our number one fan had to say about him.
Gary Danielson drinks Nick Saban's bathwater.
Is TJ Finley the starting quarterback for LSU going forward? And even if Myles Brennan was healthy, I felt as if LSU really needed to play TJ Finley, simply from a locker room standpoint. LSU saw TJ Finley lead the team, play with a lot of swagger, and I feel the locker room needs to see for themselves, along with all of us, if last week's performance was a fluke. And I don't think it was. It looks as if TJ Finley is a real deal starting quarterback in the SEC. I'm not going to lie, I think Auburn would trade Bo Nix for TJ Finley right now. But let's be honest, it was just 1 week. LSU had more time to prepare. We talked about it in our video earlier this week. If you want to check it out, look down in the comments below. So yeah, that was the first time LSU in quite some time truly had more time to prepare for an opponent than their actual opponent. That not only allowed Ed Ingram to get healthy, it also allowed a true freshman, both of them honestly, to really focus in on that one game. In other words, if they would have had to be thrown into the Florida scenario, they probably would not have played as good as TJ Finley played against South Carolina. And notice I said they. We're not even sure if TJ Finley would have gotten the start against Florida. It really was neck and neck. But now we know TJ Finley is the guy behind Myles Brennan. We're actually going to see how he performs when everything is not going in his favor. So he had a kickoff return for a touchdown, which is very rare at LSU. And then he also had a pick six, which is also just rare and random. So he was aided by 14 points that the offense didn't even have to work for. You're not always going to have everything go your way. In fact, Myles Brennan, in pretty much every start outside of Vanderbilt this year, has had to really go up against it. In the first game against Mississippi State, pass protection wasn't consistent. And then against Missouri, his defense did him absolutely no favors. What Myles Brennan did in return, though, was continually drive LSU down the field. So, can TJ Finley play in a similar situation? Because against Auburn, you're probably not going to get a pick six, you're probably not going to get a special teams touchdown, and you're probably not going to start the game off with a 7-0 lead. It's just everything went perfect for him in that first start. Now, if you take a look, Auburn's passing defense is second in the SEC, but I would counter that the first 3 games Auburn played weren't against great passing offenses. And even in that case, Arkansas, which doesn't have an elite passing offense, Felipe Franks lit them up pretty badly. So yeah, the stats are pretty skewed. They played Kentucky in week 1, and then Georgia really didn't have to pass the ball because they just beat them down in the trenches. So, that number can be a little deceiving. LSU with Terrace Marshall was really going to push them. And to counter that, Auburn's rushing defense, not really that great. They are 12th in the SEC, giving up 180 yards per game. So can Ed Ingram continue his dominance? Can the LSU defense stop the simple things? And what I mean by simple things, can they keep contained? And I'm not the only one saying this. Heck, every LSU channel is saying this. It's simple football 101. Last week against South Carolina, yeah, the defense was better, but were they really better, giving up 7.9 yards per play? Really? Come on, you got to do better than that. And I look at this LSU defense, and I wonder if they're ever going to get it fixed. So Auburn, which has not been good offensively, Chad Morris has turned out to be a disaster. Bo Nix hasn't taken that second step forward. Well, the truth is, Auburn can run the football. Tank Bigsby, which of course is a perfect name for a running back, is one heck of a football player. Under Gus Malzahn, it doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator is going to be. Auburn is going to be a threat on the ground. And here's the thing, if they ever actually figure out their passing offense, they have an incredible 1-2 duo at receiver with Schwartz and Williams. And last year, Derek Stingley Jr. was ridiculously good against Williams. So let's see what happens there. But, for me, the one thing I want LSU to do, just keep contained. Stop the basic runs. And then, of course, point number 3, special teams has always been a huge factor. We all remember just a few years ago that a field goal is what decided this game by the great Cole Tracy, probably one of the greatest one-year players in LSU history. And Auburn's field goal kicking is actually pretty good. Anders Carlson has only missed one kick, but I would add that one kick should have cost them the game against Arkansas, and then there was a controversy where he was able to redeem himself, but he shouldn't have redeemed himself. So, I absolutely have to see again if he'll choke in the clutch. So now the 3 players to watch, and I'm actually going to start off here with 2 coaches. It is Bo Pelini on the defensive side, and let's be honest, Chad Morris has been just as bad, if not worse, than Pelini. So it's weird because both of them are under immense pressure. Both of them are making 7-figure salaries to do something a lot of people would be doing better than them if they were in the same position. Both of them have been utter disasters. So this is an opportunity for either one of them to out-bad the other. So my number 2 player to watch, we've already mentioned TJ Finley and Bo Nix, but to me, John Emery Jr. versus Ty Davis Price, they called themselves a dynamic duo, so it looks as if those two have separated themselves from Chris Curry, but, not everything is going to go smoothly like against Vanderbilt and against South Carolina. You got to have one back that you have to trust in crunch time. And, for LSU, they don't know who that is right now. So that's going to be interesting to see the carry share between those two. And then player number 3, JaCoby Stevens. Now, look, he's not playing with the same unit that he played with last year. He's playing in an entirely new scheme. And he's wearing that number 7 jersey for a reason. Now, the first game against Mississippi State, JaCoby Stevens was one of the lone bright spots. He was everywhere making plays. But since then, it's been a pretty quiet year. The defense hasn't really been in position. And JaCoby Stevens kind of released a statement on Twitter towards all of us fans watching. And let's be honest, he's very passionate about this team. And I totally get that passion. But the other side of it is true. The criticism is warranted. This LSU defense has had great cornerback play. They've had great pass rush, but they continue to give up explosive plays. Against South Carolina, 7 plays of 20 yards or more, and most of those plays came with very little resistance. This isn't me blaming him for the LSU issues. This isn't Patrick Queen and Jacob Phillips from last year. He's not playing alongside Grant Delpit. he hasn't really developed chemistry with whichever safety LSU decides to run with, whether that be Todd Harris or Mo Hampton. So there's a lot of stuff going against him, but now it is time for him, who is a former 5-star, who already is one of the great LSU defensive players ever. Can he live up to that expectation this week against a struggling but potent Auburn offense? This game is kind of hard to really break down. I thought last week I was pretty confident that LSU was going to beat South Carolina. I didn't think that they would win that badly. I don't think any LSU game this year has gone according to plan. So let's be real here, all right? South Carolina was a team that beat Auburn. So if you go by transitive property, LSU should beat Auburn, correctly? Really? Should it? I don't know. And when you look at Auburn, they're 3-2. They could easily be 1-4. In fact, they probably should be 1-4. They got ridiculously lucky on the spike against Arkansas, and then Ole Miss ended controversially as well. So this actually should be a 1-4 football team. But the truth remains the same. You are having to go to Auburn. It's always been a kooky place to play. But LSU has beaten the Tigers on the Plains for, a few years in a row now. So we'll see what happens here. I am leaning towards Auburn getting this win at home. They are at home. And one thing Auburn does is they do run the football consistently well. So, until I see LSU stop the run, knowing that they're going to be on the road, I will lean Auburn in this one. I do think, and I have been predicting a few unders, even though every game this year LSU has played has gone over outside of the Vanderbilt game, and that wasn't the LSU's offense fault. But this game I actually do believe will go under the 65-point total. Let's get to your comments here, starting off with a lot of your comments regarding our last video at Sage Flash Ryan. He will be committing on game day. Now, it is a little weird to commit on game day, which is a Saturday, which also happens to be Halloween, which also happens to be Nick Saban's birthday. I don't think we should focus too much on it. I know I put a lot of emphasis on him in this class, but I still stand by what I've always said. No one commitment makes your class or makes your team. It just never has, and it honestly never will. Now, if you lose too many, then that becomes a problem. And yes, it does suck that you are seeing the player go to your arch rival. But every year, legit, every single year, a player that we believe is going to LSU ends up at Auburn. And this year it looks to be Sage Ryan. If he does end up going to Alabama, who knows? He could still end up flipping to LSU. But whether it be Patrick Surtain, Dylan Moses, or Ishmael Saucer, it happens. And, it's still early. Even if he commits to Auburn or Alabama, even if he commits to Alabama, he could end up flipping back to LSU. And if he does decide to go to Auburn, there's still some other LSU potential safeties in the class. They already had two with Matthew Langlois and Kari G. But hey, there's still some other safeties out there. Derek Davis Jr. is a kid that they've been in consistent contact with. He's the number 2 safety in the class. They were once connected with J.D. Coffey, who has been committed to Texas for quite some time now. Maybe Kane Williams, who's actually been a fan of our channel. So shout out to you, Kane. Hit me up with the follow on Instagram. I appreciate that. Maybe Kane Williams from Marrero, Louisiana, flips to LSU from Alabama. Andrew Makuba's a guy that they have been connected with, and he recently committed to Clemson. But this is from Blue Mist. I was really hoping they put Max Johnson out there, that they were going to let him throw the ball, but he ran the ball till the clock went out. Yeah, the game was in hand. Maybe we see more Max Johnson this week. We don't know, but this looks to be TJ Finley's job. Boom! This is one of the few weeks I can wear red. I'm not a big fan of the color red, but most of the schools that LSU play, most of the schools LSU plays, they wear red. So I finally get to wear this hoodie. How many of you are soccer fans? Liverpool. I know Jacob Hester is a Evertonian. Gordy Rush over there, 1045. He is a Spurs fan. But I am Liverpool. Let's go Reds. Give me your LSU versus Auburn prediction. Don't forget about the live stream after the game. It's Power Hour LSU. Ba, 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 ba. Let's go. How about some candy? It's Halloween. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups or Three Musketeers?